All right, so this is going to be a build guide. Just kidding, not really. It's the end of the league. It's the last day of the league, actually. I just wanted to document this character that I built a long time ago, earlier in the league, level 92 Amazon, bleed focused. Here's some of the stats defensively. You can see we got some energy shield. We're going CI. 32% block chance. We've got, a little bit of evasion here at 50% as well. So, decent mitigation going on in terms of evade chance and whatnot. But basically, we'll show off the build. It's a spear / hammer build. Yeah, focus around like rake and blood hunt, some spear throws, and some rapid assault, and maybe some interesting mechanics. So I'll show off a map, and then we'll kind of get into the build itself. If you guys are interested, I'll try to leave timestamps so that you guys can go and find whatever. But I'm just throwing in a map for demo purposes. The map has it's a tier 15. It's got some more life on it, and you guys can kind of see everything else there. I'm not really going to do anything crazy. Again, just end of league, and just wanted to highlight some of this stuff. So just having a lot of fun. I might even die on this because it's been a few weeks since I've played, but I'm excited for the new league. 0.4, the Druids, Val, whatever you want to call it, one. Architect of Val, it's Val League, the Ascension Alpha League, and PoE1 is one of my favorites. So that was a lot of fun, and I enjoyed putting the temples together. And just this seems kind of like a mix between that and like the old Synthesis League in PoE1 that they kind of scrapped, and now they kind of like turned into like the Calandro type stuff, where you have like maps that appear and disappear and stuff like that, but like kind of more of like the strategy and the layout where you have like tiled systems, and you're kind of like building throughout that, progressing, and kind of forming your little mini dungeons and whatnot. I'm looking like it's going to be a lot of fun. Honestly, what looks like it's the most slept on is the fact that Smith Katava is getting crazy buff. The fire spell on hit not having any mana cost. Hello, that's going to be absolutely busted, and it's really going to start enabling some really crazy hybrid builds along the top side of the left side of the tree there. With I think Smith Katava coming out like maybe pretty freaking strong this time around. I mean, you've got not only that, but defensively, it's got some changes as well. It's going to make it a little bit more tankier than it was last league. Probably not as tanky as it was in its first iteration, but we'll kind of see it as it comes along. The droid looks nice. All the different forms and whatnot. It's going to be really interesting. I'm not sure, if that's going to be the best class for all of that. I think we'll see, kind of who pans out to be the best shapeshifter, if you will. But at the end of the day, I think it'll be a lot of fun to play the druid class, and the two ascendancies look like they're pretty freaking gnarly as well. I mean, you got access to a whole hidden tree as well in the top left, the oracle and whatnot. So it's going to be, pretty interesting. I think they're, conceptually breaking some barriers, and I think that's kind of confusing people, because people are just so used to the status quo that they're like, oh, it should be this and it should be that, and it's like, no, PoE never had that identity. It's more of a sandbox, and do what you want, and kind of make it your own, and that's gonna be really, really cool to see that progress, and see what GGG and Jonathan and Mark decide to give up as people play and decide for themselves how they feel about it. So but yeah, I've been a huge Pathfinder player back in the day as well, so I'm pretty excited for the Pathfinder changes, because it also reminds me a little bit of the Scion. You can flex around different paths of the tree, which really kind of tunes to the name of Pathfinder, and looks like you're going to get some more potential for either damage or defensive capabilities within your small travel nodes as well. I mean, you know, obviously attributes are a thing, but you know, if you can make up attributes in other ways, that might be a good way to be able to at least slot in some power when you need to, you know, at the times that you need to. Because Pathfinder's always been a class where it's like, you know, retail friendly, and you know, it just wants, you really just want to feel like, you know, you're playing kind of the game on like easy mode. You know what I mean? Like at least that's how I always thought with like, you know, having access to the flax all the time in PoE1, and just like the immunities and, you know, the unaffected and just like poison prolif and stuff like that. You know, it's just like, you know, you're going to go through, you're going to be fast, you know, you're going to be able to like, you know, be relatively tanky in the grand scheme of things. And, like, you know, you're just going to be able to like spread some good clear, and you know, at the same time, it's just like a really interesting class because it was just like during your boss fights too, you just always have your flask up. So, you know, even if you played like a lot of mid-tier builds, which I did, you know, you could outlast with flasks and stuff like that. It was a lot of fun. So, I also was never really a player that like enjoyed the 6 portal system. Like I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to use all 6 portals as like my defensive mechanic, because I always thought it was like lame. I was like, I'm not going to be able to like go in and, you know, beat it my first time through, and like, what the heck am I doing here? So, but yeah, I mean, as you can see, anyways, kind of off topic. As you can see with the build's pretty fun. I'll kind of talk about it now a little bit here as I'm playing through it. I do play these live, and I don't really, you know, do a lot of, you know, post editing. Don't really care to do all that stuff. And again, it's not really, you know, I'm not really like going at this for any other reason, just to enjoy gaming, enjoy this fun experience. We call that Vexel. Have the Vexel too. So, anyways, the build, you know, main component, main clear is just, you know, left button, right button, so it's just rake, and then, you know, occasionally throw in some spear throws, and, you know, let your prolif on your hilt of blood and poison do its thing. So I'll explain how that mechanic works once we get to the skill gem section, but like as you can see, you know, we're getting like nice little explosions here that end up prolifing, you know, and there's poison that's built into that too, so you get poison and blood that really just allow for this chain type of, you know, clear that goes on. And so, you know, Rake obviously is primarily just a good bleeder, doesn't do a lot of upfront damage. It's just a good damage over time, you know, applicator, so it's going to start racking up those bleeds. That's why you don't see everything dying just immediately. And then also too, like, you know, I play hardcore, so you could probably play this character on softcore and one, get way better gear, and then two, you know, not have to worry about defenses and things like that as much as I do. Or maybe you do, I don't know, you know, it's really up to you on how you play, but you know, this is kind of just an all-arounder build for me. You know, I've played a bunch of builds this league, Chronomancer, Time Freeze, with Incinerate, which they're getting buffed as well, which is going to look even more busted because Incinerate is crazy strong, especially with Chronomancer and Time Freeze stuff. But yeah, I don't know, I mean, we'll see what, you know, the changes are really, you know, in terms of like the bosses and the mob density and how that like affects the game, because, you know, I don't know, there's like this new thing, right, where bosses now have like a built-in like timer, you know, and it's based on how much they move, you know, you get like, so there's, your damage is going to be reduced for, you know, X amount of time, and then if they like move so, you know, far, it reduces the amount of time that you have damage reduction. That's, so, you know, I don't know how much of an impact that's going to be, you know, really, but I know that's going to nerf, you know, any build that focuses on stuns and, you know, time freezes, or, you know, building up a lot of, you know, mechanics on top of the boss early on, like preloading damage and things like that. So, yeah, you know, I don't know. We'll see how much of an effect it really has. I mean, obviously, I play a lot of mid-tier builds, and I play hardcore where, you know, damage is kind of far and few in between sometimes, unless like, you know, you're crafting a lot of your own things, you know, which I do. But yeah, anyways, you may have to pause the video at some point here and go check on something. So I'll probably end up splitting the two videos here in just a second, but I'll explain how the boss works. So boss is very simple. We actually go in there first with a mace strike, use our infernal cry, and then hammer the gods, and then we build up our bleeds on that. So I'll show you how this works. Do this, drop the hammer. Wow, hammer missed. I'm terrible. Okay, so we're just going to play this old school where we're just going to beat up our stacks here. We're going to put on Blood Hound's Mark. Sorry, I'm a little distracted, so obviously it's going to be a little different here. Boom. Okay, sorry about that. Normally that was a one-hit combo because you just go ahead and mace strike. As you can see, it caused the stun. Get the infernal cry, drop the hammer of gods because you got the stun off immediately, and then you just kind of rapid assault from there. And rapid assault hits a bunch of times, so it'll proc your bleed or your aggravated bleed very easily, which I'll go over in just a minute. So yeah, sorry about that boss example. I'll put a clip at the end or at the beginning, whatever, of showing how the Hammer of Gods can be just a simple one-hit combo. But yeah, as you can see, if I hadn't missed, that would have hit, and that would have done some pretty good damage. But now for at least showing off, some of the gear and some of the gems and what we do here. So essentially, we use a spear and a shield combo, and we've got primarily, evasion and energy shield gear here. So here's my spear. As you can see, we just got some level to all melee skills, some good fizz, some cold damage. It could really be anything in here. Some increased physical damage. You could find a much better spear, especially on softcore, especially in the future. You could craft way better than this. Just what I'm using for now, it does its job. So good enough. Again, this is towards the end of the league. Actually, it's the last day before they, kind of move everything to Eternal or, Standard or whatever. But anyways, my gloves. This is the gloves and the belt is actually where we get a lot of the damage here. And the gloves, you could actually get a double socket or even triple socket where this would even pop off even more. But on softcore, on hardcore, this is probably one of the better ones that I could craft. So essentially, we socket it with a rune that gives the increased magnitude of damaging elements lest you inflict. This rune is increased by the 100% increased effect of socketed items that you see there. So essentially, that used to be 15%, now it's 30. So the 30 is quite a bit, especially when you stack it with the belt here. But get some plus level of melee skills, a little bit of life, a little bit of evasion rating, some resis, but really just a damage boost here for the gloves. Now the Darkness Enthroned Fine Belt, this is again pretty powerful. I got pretty lucky with the corruption on it for the increased maximum energy shield here. But you could see that the increased magnitude of damaging ailments that you inflict is pretty good. I got a 94%. You can actually get that up to 100% or even a little bit more. So you can do better, but this is what I have. But you socket both of those, Coruscant's Manon's Rune of Cruelty, where you get the increased magnitude of damaging ailments that you inflict. You do need this Darkness Enthroned one that says that it's good for the socketed as though it was gloves, essentially, in order to be able to get these two runes in here to be able to do that. So you get these triple runes right here, and really you're pretty set in terms of bleed damage, poison damage, at least to get you by, in terms of clear and things like that. And you can end up finding out that there's ways to stack your single target as well. So this is a pretty cool combo. Really like that. Glad that they're keeping that. And then here's my boots. Really just standard pair of boots, some evasion rating on this, movement speed, deflection, corrupted blood, immunity, all that good stuff. Here's the 2 breach rings that I have, mainly just fizz damage, some rarity, resis, dex, and intelligence. You do actually need quite a bit of stats for this character. You actually want to stack quite a bit of strength, but you do need some dexies and you do need some intelligence to be able to wear everything, and actually be able to use your skills too. So, kind of, a triple attribute stacker, kind of, not really, but, you do need all 3 of them, and, kind of need a good bit of strength to be able to wear, the Great Club, which we'll get into later. So here's the body armor that I ended up crafting, pretty decent. Reduced critical damage bonus. It's got some resis on there. Reduced attributes, so I can at least wear it, not having to get too much intelligence, even though I still have a good bit of intelligence. So that was helpful until now. Anyways, the amulet, really the main thing here is that, you want energy shield, you want global defenses, resis, dexterity, and, strength, any sort of attributes that you can get where you want, but you want to allocate the aggravation here. This gives you the 10% chance to aggravate bleeding on targets you hit with attacks, and then you combo that with rapid assault, and rapid assault obviously hits a bunch of times in a single succession. So with that, you ended up actually proccing your aggravated bleeds pretty quickly with rapid assault there, which you guys probably would have seen in that demo, because I had to have actually done it, because the mace strike combo that I normally use for bossing, I missed my Hammer of God. So the rapid assault's nice, and you can actually do some really cool things with rapid assault because it hits so many times, which we'll get into that once we get into the skill gem section here. But helmet, really just some accuracy rating, per item evasion rating. This is because we're an Amazon and we get some crit whenever we stack accuracy rating. It's really, I'm not like diving into that a ton, but being that this has a pretty high amount of evasion rating, like this actually ended up being a decent amount of crit, which does help out with DPS in the long run. And then deflection, get some resistances and stuff like that, right? So pretty standard basic gear, like nothing too crazy, right? Nothing too fancy here. But on the weapon swap, I'm probably gonna love this weapon forever now, because really this hammer's busted. I mean, yeah, you don't get to use it until level 60, but this heavy stuns enemies that are on full life is awesome. You just go in, you just whack them once, they're heavy stunned. That gives you the Hammer of Gods proc, and enough glory at least to get your Hammer of Gods, because Hammer of Gods relies on heavy stun. So that's awesome. And also, even if we didn't have this, like if you wanted to do the bossing beforehand, like you still have some really good mechanics here to create a stun and create some good bleed loops and whatnot, because of Bloodhound's mark. So even if you don't have this hammer and you just have a basic two-handed hammer before this one, you could still do Bloodhound's mark to get your heavy stuns pretty quickly off of these bleeds, and still drop Hammer of the Gods. It's it's not necessarily just a smack, boom, boom, Hammer of the Gods, like a 1-2 combo, but it is still fairly effective. And then also, as you can see, like if you miss the Hammer of Gods, or if your Hammer of Gods doesn't, do all the damage, doesn't do the thing to the boss and one hit kill it, you can still Bloodhound mark and get another heavy stun and get your Hammer of the Gods back. So I actually really like the weapon swap between hammer and spear, and just kind of like the bleed interaction with heavy stun in general, because of Bloodhound mark, and because of really this hammer that does good enough damage to carry it into the end game as well, with this heavy stuns enemies that are on full life. Again, you can't hit the boss or the enemy that you're trying to fight with any other attacks. You have to go for that first little smack first to get the Hammer of Gods interacted. But as just like a little 1-hit, 2-hit safe boss dropper, it's awesome. But anyways, it's enough talking about that weapon. I'll go into the skills now because I only have a few minutes. Alright, on the gem section now, I'll kind of go over what we have here. So pretty basic stuff. We have a Mace Strike. This Mace Strike has rapid attacks and rage, really just for the more attack speed, just so we can actually get this to hit faster. It does have reduced attack speed on the Mace Club itself, so having these two socketed in here helps. But really, again, this is just to proc the heavy stun because of this unique ability here, and be able to generate enough glory for a Hammer of Gods immediately. Spear throw, this is one of our primary clear skills here. Really what we've got this hooked up with is Gamble Shot for additional Fort, Chain, Pierce. I really did this, I've swapped this out with Scatter Shot and all of that, and you could really play around with that slot as much as you'd like. I like just a little bit of extra clear, and the less damage on this one is the least impact that you get from a Gamble Shot. So sure, why not? Poison, in order for this to be able to poison, it's got a 60% chance with more magnitude against bleeding enemies. You are going to be bleeding pretty consistently 100% of the time, so this is going to actually proc. Rapid attacks, again, chance to bleed on this. So the spear throw actually has poison DPS and it has bleed DPS. So you can see here bleed damage per second and poison damage per second. So it in itself causes both. Which we can then slot in add mixture, which allows for more magnitude of bleeding and more magnitude of poison against each other. So being that you're doing that within its own self, add mixture is a pretty good mix here. So again, this is just used to get some ranged clear and kind of pick off smaller enemies or activate packs from afar, stuff like that. So no big deal. Not a lot of damage on this, but actually the poison builds up, the bleeds build up. It holds its own. For tier 15s, like you saw there, the clear's decent enough, right? You're not just one tapping everything. You're probably not going to, at least on hardcore with how I have mid gear, not going to be doing like crazy juiced maps, but I'm level 92 hardcore, works for me, whatever. Anyways, Rake, we have, primarily set up here with an interesting combo. So more magnitude of bleeding inflicted, less damage of hits, more fizz, brutality 3, ancestral call. So this is a strike skill. So, if you guys were seeing those little blue kind of like avatars shooting out from me, that's what the ancestral boost is about there. So every 3 hits or so, every few seconds here, you can kind of see this little highlight going around there. You're going to be able to shoot off 2 additional shades of yourself that are also going to strike. So that just kind of helps for clear, and it also adds a range component into Rake that did not exist prior. Looks like we're getting some crazy lag spikes right now. I have no idea why my character is frozen, but for the purpose of the video, we were actually fine. Look at this latency right here. Woo, GGG, what is going on, buddy? We are climbing and climbing, and there it goes. We have crashed successfully. I have no idea why. I'm going to leave that in because screw it. Like I said, I don't do a lot of editing, and I feel like I've done enough editing for this video already, man. I've already got to build like a bunch of videos together now. I don't know. Anyways, so we're just gonna keep it moving. Rake, again, culmination. All right, so this is where we're gonna get a little interesting here. So culmination here. So supported skills gain combo, and then supported skills lose all combo on use. Supported skills lose combo if you generate no combo for 4 seconds, and then combo count loss for supported skills occur 50% slower. And then supported skills deal 3% more damage per combo. So basically what this is if you generate combo through a different skill, then this will deal 3% more damage per combo. Okay, and so you see these little 0 numbers right here. We can actually generate a lot of combo through this, and I'll kind of explain how that gets generated. But this is just a gem to activate once you generate a lot of combo. A dead slot if you don't have combo, but either way, it's a lot of fun. Rage, just for rage on melee hit and more attack speed. You're using Rake for your clear, so you're going to be getting that rage pretty consistently. Attack speed's always nice. Anyways, Rapid Assault. So this is going to be a pretty fun one to talk about because we have Practice Combo, where supported strike skills have a 40% chance to build an additional combo on hit, and this makes this actually generate combo. So Rapid Assault hits 6 times, right? So 6 times with an additional 40% chance to build an additional combo. You're actually getting close to 10 combo stacks, 8 to 10, 8 to 12 combo stacks per Rapid Assault, right? And that Rapid Assault hits pretty fast, right? You can just sit there on a boss or on a difficult enemy and just sit here and just wail on them. And as you're doing that, each individual strike is going to build up all types of combo. And you're going to, after even just 2 procs or so, you're going to have 20 or so stacks of combo that you can then utilize for the 3% more damage here, or even 3% more damage on your Blood Hunt as well per combo. And I mean, on, before I had a lot of DPS, you could actually sit there and build up like 100 stacks of combo pretty quickly, especially if an enemy is stunned or a boss is frozen or something like that. You can get tons of stacks with Rapid Assault Practice Combo to be able to get 3% more damage per combo on your other skills for a big just boost of single target explosive damage. We also combo this with pair this with with rage, right? Obviously, you're hitting 6 times, you generate rage, so this generates rage stacks immediately. Full rage stacks, and then we just slapped on some attack speed here. Now we do give it some poison, and we do give it ancestral call as well, in case I ever click this while I'm clearing. Otherwise, do what you want with these 2 here. But really the main component is just the attack speed, the rage generation, and the building up combo stacks, because you can build up quite a bit of combo stacks for a huge rake explosion or huge Blood Hunt explosion off of that. So Blood Hunt, this again does damage based on how much bleed is on the target, and it consumes it. So the explosion is a % of that. And so, you definitely want to have a good bit of bleed already built up on the target to use this. But, if you dive in, you rake, right, and then you Rapid Assault, build up a bunch of combo, rake again, or maybe you just Rapid Assault, rake, get that big bleed going. Once that big bleed's going, you'll start to see, the health bar there get real dark, and then you can dive in for a Blood Hunt for a big explosion there. Because this is also going to build up, its own accumulation stacks as well. So we do pair it with Inevitable Critical because we, take time to use this. It's not used all the time. So we actually get to, hang on to this until it gets its full crit. We use Blindside for even more crit against blinded enemies. We actually do have chance to blind in the tree, which then, with Rapid Assault, they're going to be blinded. Because this is, it's a chance to blind on hit, and Rapid Assault hits 6 times in a single succession. So, if you're sitting there building up additional combo, stacks, then you're gonna end up blinding the enemy as well in that succession. And we'll go over the tree after this. It's getting kind of long, but anyways, Behead. This is just to grant some modifiers from rare enemies, because this is kind of, a finisher. So if we do that on a rare, we get their modifiers. Culmination. So this is how we get the 3% more damage per combo. Again, the combo is built up from the practice combo on Rapid Assault. And then Execute. Typically, we want to do this on an enemy who has below 50% life or so, or around 60% life or so. So if we target it on enemies that are on low life at 35%, even better. But Execute for 50% more damage against enemies that are on low life, around 35%. So as a finisher, you're going to be using this as a finisher more often than not. So that's actually going to hit more often than not. Hammer of the Gods. So as you can see here, we are going to pair this with 100% chance to bleed. So this always is bleeding, we're going to give it an ancestral boost, and we're going to double that ancestral boost with Fist of War 3 every 14 seconds, because again, you're only really going to use this once per map, maybe twice on a boss, and so you're going to get that ancestral boost for every 14 seconds on Hammer of Gods, no problem. Inevitable critical also, again, because you're waiting to use this, so you're actually going to have all that built up crit strike chance. Concoct. So this is going to use 30% of your maximum life flash charges and deals 3% more magnitude of bleeding per maximum life charge. So per flash charge that it consumes. So this is actually quite a lot of bleed damage. And being that we're CI and it's like typically just used once for the boss, I don't mind spending some flash charges. And then honestly, if you get higher number of total charges here, it's going to buff this here because this consumes 30% of your maximum life charges. So it's typically this is, let's say this is 100, it's going to use 30 charges, and so 30 charges at 3% more magnitude of bleeding. That's 90% more magnitude of bleeding. That's insane. All right. So, if you get more charges, Concoct is actually pretty busted for bleed builds. Pathfinders, hello. Anyways, deep cuts, just more bleed mag. If you take this off, DPS is still pretty good, but eventually your bleed is going to outweigh your hit DPS. So you actually want to slot this in like way late. You want to slot this in after you get like a pretty good Darkness and Throne and after you get your gloves set up. Otherwise, you're going to be kind of nerfing yourself with this because you're going to be reducing your hit so much that it's just not going to really pan out in the long run. So only do this when you have enough bleed to outweigh the physical that you'd be getting. So pay attention to your stats here. Don't ever really pay attention to this main sheet right here. Always go into the details to see what's going on a dot build or damage over time build. So Bloodhound Mark, this is really again just used for heavy stun. So basically when you get blood build up, it creates a heavy stun based on that blood build up. It actually procs, it's probably one of the quickest ways to proc a heavy stun without any other cheesy mechanics if you're doing a bleed build. And kind of a lot of other builds in general, like Bloodhound Mark is really consistent. This is also how we blind on hit. So once this procs, this blinds. So again, if you're running that combo that I was talking about earlier, you're going to get that blind off. And then this aggravates bleeding on heavy stunned enemies as well. So once this is heavy stunned, it should aggravate any bleed that's on there, which is really good for the dive on Bloodhound Mark at that point, right? On Blood Hunt, excuse me. And then Mark for Death, this is just so they have a little bit of armor broken. It's okay, whatever. Infernal Cry, good just and boost your damage there button, so really just use that right before Hammer of the Gods, or I might slap it in on a pack or two because it helps with the clear, but really that's its own thing. And then our 3 Spirit Reservation here gems, we've got Wind Dancer, we've got Herald of Blood, we've got Herald of Plague. So Wind Dancer, just more evasion, some rage, some blind on hit, some bleed. This doesn't really do much for us, whatever, it gives us some evasion. Cool. They're nerfing the heck out of this, of course. It's not going to be a clear skill anymore. They're going to nerf this to be the defensive mechanic that it should be. But it was fun while it lasted, right, Thornton's guys? Yeah, Thornton's guys. Yeah, it was fun. Herald of Blood. So, this is how we get a lot of our chain clear along with Herald of Plague. So what you do is you set this up with a Bursting Plague and a chance to poison. Doing this basically makes it to where you can now chain the bleeds coming off of this Herald of Blood and poisons together. So it creates kind of its own self-sustaining loop here, and I'll explain. So the Herald of Blood, the way that this works is that the explosion deals physical damage. It can't be evaded, so it's going to hit. And so it's a hit, so it's a physical hit that happens. Now That means that it has a chance to poison. So you can actually make this poison, which will then create the bursting plague. So it'll build up poisons, which a poison plague burst will then deal physical damage, right? So this physical damage from the plague burst can bleed. So even though that Herald of Blood cannot bleed itself, it can't proc the bleed. Like it's not going to actually cause a bleed. Uh, Bursting plague, the plague burst will. So you can actually slot in bleed 3, which actually affects the support gem, not just the buff or skill gem. It does support the other skill support gems if there's any other skills within those support gems. So we've got the physical damage here component. That physical damage is then going to bleed, which is going to then create this whole loop all over again. Right now, you do this, you get double poisons with escalating poison. You throw in Herald of Plague. Herald of Plague spreads the poison. So you've got poisons that are being spread. You've got bleeds that are being spread in this own cyclical cycle here. So very, very nice mechanic, and that's how we get the spread here. And honestly, this really doesn't need to do a whole lot of damage for it to actually do the thing. So especially once you actually get both poison and bleed on it, it's very nice. Okay, anyways, some of the big things here are, we just branch out, we just take some dex, we take as much attributes, strength as we can, dex here. We get some crit, excuse me. We do come down here, we get some more crit on marked enemies. We come up here, we get, extra damage is physical, which is really nice. More phys damage. Over here, 10% chance to daze, and then 40% increase of damage against daze, and then this here, again, 40% chance and critical hit chance increased daze. So, with all this percentage chance on hit to daze and then rapid assault, if you rapid assault once, you're gonna daze them, and you're gonna get all these extra boosts right here, which is actually quite a lot. 15% here, 40% here, and then 40% damage there, and 15%. This is actually pretty good. Not gonna lie. But anyways, you can do other stuff. Probably more crit if you really wanted to, but yeah, that just gives us a nice little bit there. And then so crit damage bonus here, and then come up here, some more crit damage bonus. Right, we're just getting crit. We're getting attributes. It's really nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy here. Some energy shield up here in this corner if you ever need defenses, right? So nothing too absolutely busted here. And then for our jewel slots, this is probably your most ideal one here, where you get maximum energy shield, you get some crit damage bonus, magnitude of damaging ailments that you inflict against with critical hits, and then duration of damaging ailments. This is probably your best bet right here. Probably definitely get some better rolls, but yeah, socket them in there when you need to. When it comes to the ascendancy, we do take the evasion rating. It is doubled on our boots, gloves, and helmet, and then halved on the body armor. So really everything is evasion rating, as you can see here, except for our body armor, and that's how we can kind of pull off this hybrid type of build. And with the shield, it's kind of tanky. I haven't died, so hey, whatever. It works. And anyways, so we also get they'll reveal weaknesses for more damage, and do that whenever, and that's cool. And then you got your 20% movement speed, while it's also doing the thing, and that's cool. Right, it's just damage and all that stuff whenever you see it's time to shine on your bar. And then down here, critical hit chance exceeds for accuracy rating, so that's kind of why we get this, and a little bit of accuracy rating when we can, and gives us a little bit more crit. Honestly, you could probably just take the life leech here based on your elemental damage. You could get some life leech through elemental damage, and maybe stack a little bit of elemental damage on top of your stuff, and just have a little bit of leech to top yourself off every now and again. Because yeah, I mean, other than that, you know, the build's kind of risky. You do have to kind of just like rely on, you know, being at the right place at the right time, and when it comes to bosses, you know, just doing the thing here. So yeah, that's it. Really excited for the new league. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. I am only disappointed that we're not getting all the acts and all that stuff, but you know, I do think the druid's going to be great. I do think the league mechanics going to be great. I'm so happy that they're, you know, increasing the performance and they're focusing on performance. Basically, everybody in my guild that's joined my guild here. I mean, we've got, you know, a good few of us, you know, they are essentially mainly console players. I'm one of the few that play on PC, and it's just a noticeable difference between, you know, their experience and the experience that I'm having. And I have a top tier or decently, you know, it's like 1 or 2 years old. It's got 4090 in it. It's got, you know, pretty top of the line stuff. You know, before all the AI stuff really started coming out, so it should handle this. It should handle this game just fine. I think the game's beautiful. It does handle the game just fine, typically for me in most cases. But you know, I do see a lot of my console buddies out there struggling. So that's all to be said. Hopefully, we see you there. And yeah, don't really care if you're like or subscribe. Again, just vibing out here. Let's get it, boys and gals.